Disclaimer: this video is purely for educational purposes only. It aims to raise awareness about cybersecurity threats and promote informed decision-making. The information provided does not endorse or encourage any illegal activities. Viewers are advised to use this knowledge responsibly and in compliance with applicable laws and regulations. The creators of this video are not liable for any misuse of the information presented here. Hello hackers, today we will drive through a very important topic, which is truly designed to better understand about cybersecurity landscape and hackers' ability to do things. Cyber attacks. Cyber attacks encompass a broad range of malicious activities carried out through digital means, targeting computer systems, networks, and data. These attacks can exploit vulnerabilities in software, hardware, or human behavior to compromise the confidentiality, integrity, or availability of information. A cyber attack is an attempt by cyber criminals, hackers, or other digital adversaries to access a computer network or system, usually for the purpose of altering, stealing, destroying, or exposing information. Cyber attacks present significant threats to individuals, businesses, governments, and critical infrastructure, highlighting the importance of robust cybersecurity measures and ongoing vigilance to mitigate risks and safeguard digital assets. Before start, subscribing to our channel not only shows your support, but it also fuels our passion to bring you even more amazing content. Your click makes a difference in shaping the future of our channel, ensuring we continue to deliver high-quality, valuable content. Join us on this exciting journey by hitting that subscribe button today. Thank you so much. Now let's get back to our topic. There are so many attacks out there now these days. We will discuss each of them in this video. Stay tuned. Let's start with malware. Malware, short for malicious software, refers to a broad category of software programs designed to infiltrate, damage, or gain unauthorized access to computer systems, networks, or devices, often without the user knowledge. Malware is the most common type of cyber attacks, mostly because this term includes many subsets such as ransomware, trojans, spyware, viruses, worms, keyloggers, bots, and many other type of malware attacks that leverages software in a malicious way. Now discuss each of them. Ransomware. Ransomware is a type of malicious software designed to block access to a computer system or encrypt files until a ransom is paid. Typically spread through phishing emails, malicious websites, or exploit kits, ransomware infiltrates systems and encrypts files, rendering them inaccessible to users. Upon infection, victims receive instructions demanding payment, often in cryptocurrency, in exchange for a decryption key or software that restores access to the encrypted data. Ransomware attacks can have devastating consequences for individuals, businesses, and organizations, resulting in data loss, financial losses, and reputational damage. Fileless malware. Fileless malware is a type of malicious activity that uses native, legitimate tools built into a system to execute a cyber attack. Unlike traditional malware, fileless malware does not require an attacker to install any code on a target system, this nature making it hard to detect. Spyware. Spyware is a type of unwanted, malicious software that infects a computer or other device and collects information about a user web activity without their knowledge or authorization. Addware. Addware is a type of spyware that watches a user online activity in order to determine which ads to show them. While addware is not inherently malicious, it has an impact on the performance of a user device and degrades the user experience. Trojan. A Trojan is malware that appears to be legitimate software concealed as native operating system programs or harmless files like free downloads. Trojans are installed through social engineering techniques such as phishing or bait websites. The Zeus Trojan malware, a variant, has the goal accessing financial information and adding machines to a botnet. Worms. A worm is a self-contained program that replicates itself and spreads its copies to other computers. A worm may infect its target through a software vulnerability, or it may be delivered via phishing or smishing. Embedded worms can modify and delete files, inject more malicious software, or replicate in place until the targeted system runs out of resources. Rootkit malware is a collection of software designed to give malicious actors control of a computer network or application. Once activated, the malicious program sets up a backdoor exploit and may deliver additional malware. Bootkits take this a step further by infecting the master boot prior to the operating system being on boot up, going undetectable at times. Mobile malware. Mobile malware is any type of malware designed to target mobile devices. Mobile malware is delivered through malicious downloads, operating system vulnerabilities, phishing, smishing, and the use of unsecured Wi-Fi. Exploits. An exploit is a piece of software or data that opportunistically uses a defect in an operating system or an application to provide access to unauthorized actors. The exploit may be used to install more malware or steal data. Scareware. Scareware tricks users into believing their computer is infected with a virus. Typically, a user will see scareware as a pop-up warning them that their system is infected. This scare tactic aims to convince people into installing fake antivirus software to remove the virus. Once this fake antivirus software is downloaded, then malware may infect your computer. Keylogger. Keyloggers are tools that record what a person types on a device. While there are legitimate and legal uses for keyloggers, many uses are malicious. In a keylogger attack, the keylogger software records every keystroke on the victim device and sends it to the attacker. Botnets. Botnet is a network of computers infected with malware that are controlled by a bot herder. The bot herder is the person who operates the botnet infrastructure and uses the compromised computers to launch attacks designed to crash a target network, inject malware, harvest credentials, or execute CPU-intensive tasks. DOS and DDoS attacks. Denial of service DOS and distributed denial of service DDoS attacks are malicious attempts to disrupt the availability of online services or websites by overwhelming them with a flood of traffic. In a DOS attack, a single source or a small group of attackers targets a specific service or website by sending a large volume of traffic, such as connection requests or data packets, to its servers. This flood of requests consumes the targeted system resources, such as bandwidth, memory, or processing power, making it slow or unresponsive to legitimate user requests. These attacks can exploit vulnerabilities in network protocols, servers, or applications to achieve their goal. On the other hand, DDoS attacks involve multiple sources, often thousands or even millions of compromised devices, forming a botnet under the control of an attacker. These botnets are coordinated to simultaneously send overwhelming traffic to the target, making it even more difficult to mitigate the attack. These attacks are more sophisticated and challenging to defend against compared to DOS attacks due to their distributed nature and the use of a large number of attacking devices. Both DOS and DDoS attacks can have severe consequences, including disrupting business operations, causing financial losses, damaging reputation, and potentially leading to data breaches or service outages. Social engineering attacks. Social engineering attacks involve manipulating individuals to gain access to sensitive information or systems. Attackers exploit human psychology rather than technical vulnerabilities. Common techniques include pretexting, creating a fabricated scenario to obtain information, phishing, sending deceptive emails or messages to trick recipients into revealing personal information, or clicking on malicious links, baiting, offering something enticing to lure victims into providing information or taking actions, and tailgating, physically following someone into a restricted area. These attacks rely on exploiting trust, curiosity, or fear to deceive individuals into divulging confidential information or performing actions that compromise security. There are many other types of social engineering attacks. Let's look at each of them. Phishing attacks. A phishing attack is a form of cybercrime where attackers attempt to deceive individuals into unveiling sensitive information such as passwords, credit card numbers, or personal identification details by masquerading as trustworthy entities. Typically, phishing attacks are carried out through deceptive emails, instant messages, or websites that appear legitimate, often mimicking well-known companies, financial institutions, or government agencies. These fraudulent communications usually contain urgent requests, alarming messages, or attractive offers to prompt recipients to take immediate action. such as clicking on malicious links, downloading attachments, or providing confidential information. Once victims interact with these deceptive elements, their sensitive data is either directly captured by the attackers or used to gain unauthorized access to accounts or systems. Phishing attacks rely on social engineering tactics to exploit human vulnerabilities rather than technical flaws in software or hardware, making them challenging to detect and prevent entirely through automated defenses. Types of phishing attacks. Spear phishing. Spear phishing is a targeted form of phishing attack in which attackers personalize their deceptive messages to specific individuals or organizations. Unlike traditional phishing campaigns that cast a wide area to lure random victims, spear phishing involves researching and gathering information about the intended targets to craft highly tailored emails or messages. These messages often appear to come from a trusted source, such as a colleague, superior, or reputable organization, and contain relevant details or context to increase credibility and manipulate the recipient into taking a desired action. This action may include clicking on malicious links, downloading infected attachments, or divulging sensitive information such as login credentials or financial data. Spear phishing attacks rely on social engineering tactics to exploit human trust and bypass traditional security measures, making them more challenging to detect and defend against. Whaling. Whaling is a specialized form of phishing attack that targets high-profile individuals within an organization, such as executives, senior managers, or CEO, with the aim of obtaining sensitive information or gaining unauthorized access to corporate networks. Also known as CEO fraud or business email compromise, whaling attacks leverage social engineering tactics to deceive their targets, often by impersonating trusted colleagues, business partners, or reputable entities. Attackers carefully research their victims to craft convincing emails or messages that appear legitimate and urgent. Whaling attacks exploit the authority and access privileges of senior executives to maximize the impact and potential financial gain for the attackers. Due to the high level of trust and influence these individuals hold within organizations, whaling attacks can have severe consequences, including financial losses, reputational damage, and regulatory compliance violations. Smishing. Smishing is the act of sending fraudulent text messages designed to trick individuals into sharing sensitive data, such as passwords, usernames, and credit card numbers. A smishing attack may involve cyber criminals pretending to be your bank or a shipping service you use. Vishing. Vishing, a voice phishing attack, is the fraudulent use of phone calls and voice messages pretending to be from a reputable organization to convince individuals to reveal private information such as bank details and passwords. Spoofing attacks. Spoofing attacks are a type of cyber threat in which attackers disguise their identity or manipulate data to appear as though it originates from a trusted source. These attacks can occur at various levels, including IP address spoofing, email spoofing, DNS spoofing, ARP spoofing, and website spoofing. Spoofing attacks exploit vulnerabilities in communication protocols, email systems, or web browsers, leveraging social engineering techniques to manipulate user trust and facilitate malicious activities. Types of common spoofing attacks. IP address spoofing. In this type of attack, attackers forge the source IP address of packets to impersonate a trusted host or network, enabling them to bypass authentication mechanisms or launch attacks, such as distributed denial of service or DOS attacks. By disguising their true origin, attackers can evade detection and carry out malicious activities without being traced back to their actual location. Email spoofing. Email spoofing involves falsifying the sender email address to appear as though it originates from a legitimate source, such as a reputable organization or known individual. Attackers often use this technique to trick recipients into disclosing sensitive information, clicking on malicious links, or downloading malware attachments. Common email spoofing methods include using similar domain names, manipulating email headers, or exploiting vulnerabilities in email authentication protocols. DNS spoofing. DNS spoofing, or DNS cache poisoning, is a type of cyber attack where attackers corrupt the domain name system or DNS data on a compromised DNS server or network device to redirect users to malicious websites or servers. By tampering with DNS records, attackers can associate legitimate domain names with incorrect IP addresses, leading users to unintended destinations, such as phishing sites or malware distribution servers. DNS spoofing exploits vulnerabilities in the DNS infrastructure to intercept and manipulate DNS queries and responses, allowing attackers to redirect traffic and impersonate trusted websites or services. Website spoofing. Website spoofing occurs when attackers create counterfeit websites that closely resemble legitimate ones, aiming to deceive users into entering their credentials, financial information, or personal details. These fraudulent websites often replicate the design, branding, and content of legitimate sites to trick users into believing they are interacting with a trusted entity. Website spoofing is commonly used in phishing attacks, where attackers exploit user trust to steal sensitive information or spread malware. ARP spoofing. ARP spoofing, also known as ARP poisoning or ARP cache poisoning. In this type of cyber attack, where attackers manipulate the address resolution protocol table or ARP table on a local area network called LAN to intercept, modify, or redirect network traffic. ARP is responsible for mapping IP addresses to MAC addresses, allowing devices to communicate within a network. In an ARP spoofing attack, the attacker sends forged ARP messages to associate their MAC address with the IP address of another legitimate device on the network, such as the default gateway or a specific host. This causes network traffic intended for the targeted device to be redirected to the attacker machine instead. Once the attacker intercepts the traffic, they can eavesdrop on communications or modify the data before forwarding it to the intended recipient. ARP spoofing attacks exploit the lack of authentication in the ARP protocol, making them relatively easy to execute. Identity-based attacks. Identity-based cyber attacks involve exploiting vulnerabilities related to user identities within an organization's networks or systems. These attacks often target user credentials, access controls, and authentication mechanisms to gain unauthorized access or compromise sensitive information. Common types of identity-based cyber attacks. Man-in-the-middle attack. A man-in-the-middle attack is a type of cyber attack in which an attacker eavesdrops on a conversation between two targets with the goal of collecting personal data, passwords, or banking details, and to convince the victim to take an action such as changing login credentials, completing a transaction, or initiating a transfer of funds. Pass-the-hash attack. A pass-the-hash attack is a type of cyber attack where an attacker steals hashed passwords from a compromised system and then uses these hashes to authenticate and gain unauthorized access to other systems or services within the same network. This attack does not involve stealing plaintext passwords. Instead, it leverages the hashed representation of passwords stored locally or transmitted over the network. Golden and silver ticket attack. Both the golden and silver ticket attacks exploit vulnerabilities in the Kerberos authentication protocol commonly used in Windows Active Directory environments. In a golden ticket attack, the adversary gains unauthorized access to a domain controller and extracts the key distribution service account password hash. This hash is then used to forge a full domain-level access ticket, granting the attacker unrestricted access to the entire domain. On the other hand, a silver ticket attack involves forging a ticket for a specific service or resource within the domain, typically by obtaining the service principal name of the target service. Despite their differences, both attacks enable adversaries to bypass traditional authentication mechanisms and impersonate users or services without needing their credentials. These attacks pose significant risks to organizations, as they can remain undetected for extended periods and grant attackers access to sensitive data and critical systems. Password attacks. Password attacks refer to various techniques used by malicious actors to gain unauthorized access to user accounts or systems by guessing, cracking, or stealing passwords. These attacks exploit weaknesses in password security to compromise sensitive information or cause harm. Common types of password attacks include brute force attacks, where attackers systematically try every possible combination of characters until the correct password is found, and dictionary attacks, where commonly used passwords or words from a dictionary are tried sequentially. Downgrade attacks. Downgrade attacks are a type of security threat where an attacker manipulates the communication between two parties to force them to use older or less secure protocols, versions, or cryptographic algorithms than they would normally use. By downgrading the security level, the attacker can exploit vulnerabilities present in older versions or weaker protocols to gain unauthorized access to sensitive information or compromise the system's security. These attacks often target systems that support multiple versions of protocols, such as SSL or TLS and HTTP instead HTTPS. URL interpretation attacks. With URL interpretation, attackers alter and fabricate certain URL addresses and use them to gain access to the target personal and professional data. This kind of attacks is also referred to as URL poisoning. The name URL interpretation comes from the fact that the attacker knows the order in which a web page's URL information needs to be entered. The attacker then interprets this syntax, using it to figure out how to get into areas they do not have access to. To execute a URL interpretation attack, a hacker may guess URLs they can use to gain administrator privileges to a site or to access the site backend to get into a user account. Once they get to the page they want, they can manipulate the site itself or gain access to sensitive information about the people who use it. For example, if a hacker attempts to get into the admin section of a site, they may type in domain name of any website with /admin parameter, and this will bring them to an admin login page. In some cases, the admin username and password may be the default like admin or very easy to guess. An attacker may also have already figured out the admin password or narrowed it down to a few possibilities. The attacker then tries each one, gains access, and can manipulate, steal, or delete data at will. Session hijacking. Session hijacking is one of multiple types of man-in-the-middle attacks. The attacker takes over a session between a client and the server. The computer being used in the attack substitutes its IP address for that of the client computer, and the server continues the session without suspecting it is communicating with the attacker instead of the client. This kind of attack is effective because the server uses the client IP address to verify its identity. If the attacker IP address is inserted partway through the session, the server may not suspect a breach because it is already engaged in a trusted connection. These attacks have many different types like man-in-the-middle attack, session fixation attack, cross-site scripting or XSS attack, predictable session token attack, brute force attack, and cookie stealing attack. Website attacks. Web attacks refer to threats that target vulnerabilities in web-based applications. Every time you enter information into a web application, you are initiating a command that generates a response. For example, if you are sending money to someone using an online banking application, the data you enter instructs the application to go into your account, take money out, and send it to someone else's account. Attackers work within the frameworks of these kinds of requests and use them to their advantage. Some common web attacks include SQL injection and cross-site scripting or XSS. SQL injection attacks. SQL injection is a type of cyber attack that targets the security vulnerabilities present in database-driven applications. In this attack, hackers inject malicious SQL or structured query language code into input fields of a web application, exploiting flaws in the application code that allow direct manipulation of the database. By doing so, attackers can manipulate the database queries to perform unauthorized actions, such as retrieving sensitive data, modifying or deleting records, or even taking control of the entire database server. SQL injection attacks can have devastating consequences for organizations, leading to data breaches, loss of sensitive information, financial losses, and damage to reputation. XSS attacks. An XSS or cross-site scripting attack occurs when a malicious actor injects malicious scripts, typically written in JavaScript, into web pages viewed by other users. These scripts are then executed within the context of the victim browser, allowing the attacker to steal sensitive information, manipulate the appearance of the page, or perform other malicious actions. XSS attacks can be divided into three main categories: stored XSS, reflected XSS, and DOM-based XSS. In a stored XSS attack, the malicious script is permanently stored on the server and executed whenever the compromised page is accessed. Reflected XSS involves the injection of malicious scripts into a web application response, which are then reflected back to the user browser as part of the page content. DOM-based XSS occurs when the client-side script modifies the DOM of the page in an unsafe manner. Hackers also use cross-site request forgery or CSRF attacks and parameter tampering. In a CSRF attack, the victim is fooled into performing an action that benefits the attacker. For example, they may click on something that launches a script designed to change the login credentials to access a web application. The hacker, armed with the new login credentials, can then log in as if they are the legitimate user. Parameter tampering involves adjusting the parameters that programmers implement as security measures designed to protect specific operations. The operation execution depends on what is entered in the parameter. The attacker simply changes the parameters, and this allows them to bypass the security measures that depended on those parameters. Insider threats. Sometimes the most dangerous actors come from within an organization. People within a company-owned doors present a special danger because they typically have access to a variety of systems, and in some cases admin privileges that enable them to make critical changes to the system or its security policies. In addition, people within the organization often have an in-depth understanding of its cybersecurity architecture as well as how the business reacts to threats. This knowledge can be used to gain access to restricted areas, make changes to security settings, or decrease the best possible time to conduct an attack. Eavesdropping attacks. Eavesdropping attacks involve the bad actor intercepting traffic as it is sent through the network. In this way, an attacker can collect usernames, passwords, and other confidential information like credit cards details. Eavesdropping can be active or passive. With active eavesdropping, the hacker inserts a piece of software within the network traffic path to collect information that the hacker analyzes for useful data. Passive eavesdropping attacks are different in that the hacker listens in or eavesdrops on the transmissions looking for useful data they can steal. Both active and passive eavesdropping are types of man-in-the-middle attacks. One of the best ways of preventing them is by encrypting your data, which prevents it from being used by a hacker, regardless of whether they use active or passive eavesdropping. Cyber attacks exploit vulnerabilities in computer systems or networks to gain unauthorized access, steal data, disrupt operations, or cause damage. To prevent them, organizations should regularly update software, employ strong authentication methods, use encryption for sensitive data, implement firewalls and intrusion detection systems, conduct security training for employees, and establish incident response plans for swift action in case of an attack. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I genuinely hope that you found it informative and valuable. Remember, knowledge is power, and by staying informed about cybersecurity threats and best practices, we empower ourselves to navigate the digital world safely and securely. See you in the next one.